DJGamers.com.
Alright everybody, welcome to another one of our Console Wars of the Past documentaries. And today we are taking a look at the Sega Saturn. This is the Sega Saturn. As you'll see, we've got the top of the console here. There's your power button on the left there. Your open button, which opens up your disc tray. Your reset button. And on the back of the console you have a memory port which you could put in a RAM cartridge, which would, I think, make some games run smoother, or...
It was the save cartridge.
There's an extra save cartridge.
This is how you... There was no other external memory, and being it was a disk-based system, they needed memory storage, so they went with little cartridges, basically flash RAM. But this was also used for the Sega Net modem.
Oh yeah, you plugged that in there and could play a couple of the online games for the Sega Saturn.
On the Sega Net, the first version of it, and it would use a 28.8 kilobyte modem, which at the time was pretty fast and decent because a lot of people were still on 14.4 connections then. So it was fairly impressive, but not a whole lot of games supported it.
No, it had like 5 games in the US that actually supported it. But, you know, if you had one of those 5 games, there were a few thousand people that bought those. So
the Sega LiveNet, as it was called at that point, went on to become just Sega Net during the Dreamcast and worked a lot better and did a lot better for them. During the Saturn's time, it was a little too costly. The technology wasn't quite fast enough. But it put the roots there for the online gaming we see today.
Well, the fact that they were even attempting it that early for a game console is kind of unique.
Not only attempting, but they did pull it off, so that's definitely worth noting.
Let me take a quick look at the cartridge ports here. As you see here, they're shaped just like... They're shaped differently than...
The controller ports.
Yeah, controller ports. Shaped differently than, you know, the other Sega consoles, so yes. These required their own special controllers.
Not backwards compatible. Back of the system,
you've got your power supply, your TV port, and we have a communication connector.
Which was for some of the other connections that would work with the Saturn. The Saturn would also had a printer converter so that with the Sega LiveNet, you could actually print things because you could view regular internet websites with it.
Now this is where you could change your save battery. So, if your memory was lacking at that point.
And I'm not sure what else this was used for. There's a connector down in there. So, I'm not sure what the proposed use for this was, but and I don't know that they took advantage of it.
It might have just been something they didn't utilize, or at least not here in the U.S.
So
there's always
a mystery plug-in in the back there.
Gotta love those mystery plug-ins. Now let's take a look at a couple of the input devices. First off, let's take a look at the original U.S. Controller. Here you have kind of a bulkier design. They're huge buttons.
6 of them on the front face. And 2 large triggers.
Kind of triggers.
That don't hardly work. You can't really tell if you're hitting them or not.
Yeah, the feel of that controller just doesn't...
There's no give. It just feels like you're touching it.
Feels like it's part of the controller.
Yeah, so not a superior design. The directional pad's not bad.
Yeah, the directional pad's actually pretty nice on that version. Now, as far as the other control pad, this was what was released with the Japanese Saturn. And as you can see, it's a little bit sleeker with, they definitely slimmed down the design. Still have the 6 buttons.
More of a butterfly pattern shape.
And triggers that actually feel like you're pressing triggers.
Yeah, still not as good as the other systems, but a major improvement over this bulky beast here. So as you can see, they trimmed it down quite a bit. Basically just kept this center part here and trimmed off the rest of it.
Yeah, it didn't need all that extra plastic, really.
No, this thing's not quite as comfy. Much better design.
Now, this huge hulking beast here in the middle is the Sega Saturn arcade stick. Official.
For playing your Sega and other arcade fighting games.
Which were huge at the time. As you can see, you basically lay it down and hit it like an arcade board.
You've got the oversized buttons, you've got your turbo and automatic functions to help you cheat a little bit, and the arcade joystick, which of course is paramount to the arcade experience.
Yeah, the arcade stick is just hands down the best thing to play a fighter with.
And this was officially made by Sega, who had a lot of experience making arcade boards, so it really wasn't a stretch for them to make this controller, but definitely a nice thing to be released for the system as an official product to play your Virtua Fighter and Street Fighter, the movie, the game.
And Marvel vs. Capcom.
Which is worth playing.
Yes. Speaking of a game that's worth playing, let's take a look at one of the games we have here to show the Saturn off. We have Nights into Dreams. Tilt that a little bit more for me, please. Yeah, Nights into Dreams. This one came bundled with the Saturn, as you can see at the not for resale, kind of.
Yes, so this one came in a traditional CD jewel case, but Sega went for the long box CD cases originally, and I don't know for sure, but I'm going to imagine it was because they had a lot left over from the Sega CD games that didn't sell, such as this.
Yeah, they had tons of Sega CD games.
This is what a long box would look like, as opposed to a regular
As you can see
CD
the size
case.
comparison there.
So, they were bulkier, harder for people to steal, I suppose. I'm not quite sure what the theory was. But they eventually went to the smaller, traditional CD jewel cases once Sony kind of took over the industry and made that a standard.
And it really wasn't in this generation. It was more into the Dreamcast era when they actually stepped into the jewel cases.
Yeah, they fully gave up on the long boxes and realized, much like the rest of their endeavors, it wasn't where things were headed.
Right. So, here's our look at the Sega Saturn's hardware and its accessories. So, let's take a look at some of the games for this system.
Now, there are two versions of the hardware, but the only main difference was the buttons were a little bit different on the top, but I believe the hardware is still the same. They just look a little bit different.
Yeah, it's all style.
Yeah. So,
well, let's get to it.
You are approaching Saturn. You are only seconds away. I have arranged for you to meet my companion. He will lead you. Watch and listen. Please, don't disappoint him. He doesn't like that.
We are 5 years away from entering the 21st century. Humankind stands on the edge of the interactive age. You have come a long way. But are you ready for the future?
Introducing Sega Saturn. Aww, hit it! Sega's next-generation gaming platform, revolutionary sports and arcade gameplay, all with amazing new 3D experiences never before possible on home game systems. Wow.
Sega Saturn. It's how you play the game.
DJ Gamers.com.